Hello everyone, it's Niz, and today I'm going to cover a game that I've been getting into for the past couple months. Katana Zero is a game about a samurai living in the slums of a city inside a valley called New Mecha City. He is given assignments by a psychiatrist to hunt down targets throughout the town while shredding anyone who gets in his way. What allows him to go on these rampages is not only his killing talents, but also his powers that he can use to utilize time for himself, allowing him to slow the world down, reducing the speed of everything while reducing his opponent's reaction time, and not to forget that he rewinds on death to a checkpoint, allowing him to redo a mission until he finally gets it right, essentially making him an unstoppable killing machine. As long as there's the slightest possibility he can succeed, he eventually will, while everyone else sees him succeed on what they think is his very first try. Katana Zero is a very simple game, having the average movements, wall jumps, a dodge roll, and a melee attack, and range attacks are incredibly limited, being only done with a single use thrown objects in the base game. The game has simple but tight mechanics, your offense often doubling as your defense. Dodge rolls will often be used to close the pesky gap between you and the enemy, but will often be used to avoid attacks. Sword slashes will naturally be used to slice through your enemies, but once you get the timing down or slow down time, it can effectively be used to reflect bullets back at them. The game focuses on timing, making it easy to play but difficult to master. Your katana can reflect bullets, but can only reflect one bullet at a time. That, and it has a brief recharge in between the swings. Although slow motion gives you time to recharge while the bullets travel slower, enemies focus firing you at once and enemies with shotguns will absolutely shred you, meaning you'll have to dodge roll, but to dodge roll requires for you to be on the ground, and enemies will still have a means to retaliate quickly at point blank. So if you dodge roll too soon, you won't get behind them and will be immediately punished. Learning each enemy's reaction time, their means of countering you, as well as your means of countering them. This is the name of the game. A lot of enemies come down to getting behind them or timing your counters on them, but the combat definitely mixes up when you have more combinations of them coming together to kill you. If you dodge from a skinny Ricky too fast, when a shotgun guy is behind him, you'll get a face full of buckshot. If you swing at a gunman too close to the skinny Ricky, he'll block it with his crowbar. The reflect will still go through, but now you're put in a longer cooldown before using your sword again, leaving you completely vulnerable. The smooth animations, as well as its hit pauses for the stabs, makes your kills feel more like they have weight to them. Add its soundtrack to the equation and it makes the combat feel satisfying. This works well alongside the inclusion of the replay mechanic, which shows your prowess of your successful run in the form of a security camera, and shows any slow motion that you went through in regular speed, maintaining an immersion of playing an unnaturally swift and efficient killer, with the satisfaction of seeing your successful attempt in its full glory. This game has a type of enemy that makes it stand out from games like it, and that's bosses. Bosses are hard to do in games like these. They often just take a few more hits to take out and are a bit faster, or they have a lot of minions. This game makes save points in between phases of longer bosses, and likes to keep boss fights relatively short, especially once you memorize their attack patterns and or the order they do attacks. But learning how to face characters like Mr. Kissy Face and Headhunter felt accomplishing. There's sort of a grace to their moves, making fighting them feel like a spectacle, and I hope to fight more enemies like them in the DLC. Now, at the risk of being put on a list, I will say one flaw the game has is the kill animations are very lacking. There's a very limited amount of death animations for each enemy. Mind you, what's there looks good, but there's no real gore, and the game tries to compensate with its blood splattering system, but I honestly felt like it could use more. If you're looking for the psychopathic creativity of robbing your fellow man of life that Hotline Miami provided, you may be a bit disappointed in that regard. While I'm on the subject of misplaced expectations, let me get this out of the way about the setting's time. Despite the game taking place 7 years after a war based off the Vietnam War, the game is pretty much set in modern times. I mean recently. They bring up live leaks in their version of Netflix, but they seem to be a bit sci-fi when it comes to their military gear. Well, let's just say, knowing the events of the game, it makes complete sense New Mecha put all of its eggs in the military basket. I'm going to be going over spoilers at this point. If you don't want to hear them, skip to this part. To go over the story, Zero's not actually a samurai. Well, alright, that makes sense. He's actually a war veteran who's sent to assassinate people by a psychiatrist. His psychiatrist helps rehabilitate him from an injury that wiped out his memory. In reality, this is just a ploy.
and he's keeping tabs on you, making sure you don't remember anything dangerous or detrimental to the government. Despite his memory loss, Zero very clearly is suffering from trauma from his past, but seemingly as a child rather than in the war. To aid him, his psychiatrist gives him this unknown medicine. Not knowing what it is and what it actually does raises some flags for me. The targets also seem to speak cryptically about what happened, and at one point, Zero's told outright, several times, not to talk to one of the targets. Something is very clearly up. In reality, your medicine is a drug called Chronos that is the source of all your powers. Go figure. Everyone that you kill is closely related to the project involving Chronos, which is later revealed to have been a drug used in the Cro-Mag War 7 years ago, and you could tell it's based off the Vietnam War just off of how it went so damn south. Zero finds this out by going to the facility used to train gnolls, the super soldiers they put on Chronos. They were created to go through more dangerous and or morally questionable missions. They were deemed a failure, with the dangerous side effect of their withdrawal dragging them into a personal hell where time stops. As a result, the project died with war, and Chronos manufacturing came to a standstill, with gnolls dying out from withdrawal and few remaining fighting over what little is left. Zero's only getting supplied because his memory loss makes him easier to manipulate, and a gnoll, like it or not, is a great candidate for tying off all the loose ends while being one himself. Once there's nobody left, well, they could just leave him high and dry and have him inevitably die from withdrawal. Zero pieces this together throughout the story, realizing his nightmares are actually memories of one of his missions, and he was not the child, but the soldier he feared this entire time. Zero, apparently not as predictably as I thought, doesn't take this very well, and goes rogue. I do want to point out the little hints that you're probably not the only one the government has between its fingers, as it's implied the psychiatrist has multiple clients, and the last dossier file you can find is one of yourself, around the time you become more of a burden than an asset. But with the story out of the way, I'd like to talk about Zero himself because I find him pretty intriguing. I mean, for God's sakes, on the surface level, he's a junkie in a bathrobe with a katana, a death wish, and enough drugs in his system to sedate a horse. Of course I'm gonna want to know more. And I got my wish. You learn more from Zero throughout the game, not only from his past, but from his actions. It starts becoming clear that Zero is not the cold, calculated kill machine the government wants. For better or worse, he's clearly a little as he has a tendency to. Good lord, man, you have a sword! This is what makes Zero more interesting than, say, Jacket from Hotline Miami or Reaper from Deadbolt. Zero is, without a doubt, a killing machine, but you can see there's still something else about him, things that make it clear why gnolls were deemed a failure. What he prefers to keep hidden under the callous visage he shows his enemies is that he's still capable of humor, camaraderie, and fear. Zero, despite years of conditioning, years of training, years of taking mortality of himself and others for granted due to the drug, is still flawed. But more importantly, Zero is still human. This game does have an interesting assortment of post-game content. You gain access to a building that holds an arsenal of blades which you unlock through hidden means. They all have different effects, most stronger than the default sword. My personal favorite being the Savant Knife, which you can use to float in the air due to its high swing speed. There's also a speedrun mode, and with this comes a hard mode, which has 2 new enemy types. I guess my only complaint here would be I kind of wish you could play the hard mode separate from the speedrun mode. There's no consequence of doing poorly in speedrun mode, but I sort of also wish hard mode tied in with the story. Like having a bit of hidden information in the hard mode would be nice. But to be fair, I haven't beaten hard mode yet, so for all I know, it could be in there. I better get on it. I also hope later down the line the update for the game comes up with a map making system, because that's something games like this need. A way for the community to create their own challenges to share with other people. There's a lot to enjoy about this game. Although it has a small arsenal of tricks for you to use, it really tests you and encourages you to master them. The game has a quality soundtrack that varies in genre and fits the mood of the current mission. The story delves a bit more into the psyche of the protagonist than other games like it. It also shows a lighter tone with some of the pastimes of the goons you're about to kill as well as the things Zero can do and say, giving the game its own charm. I'm pretty excited to see how the game ends, and I'm anticipating what comes next. If you're annoyed by cliffhangers, I'd wait just a bit longer for the game to release the climax of the story. It is worth pointing out the game is short. In its current state, you could probably get the most out of it from 10 to 20 hours. Assuming the DLC for the game is free, however, this is a game I could recommend at full price, or even a sale if fast-paced trial and error games are up your alley. This game has a bit more focus on the story than other games like it, which may annoy you if you're more for the fast gameplay. The good news being, once you beat the game, you get all the options available to skip said parts and get straight into the action. But in summary, it felt well worth $15 for the experience I got. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, be safe.